the money.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah.
This is Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Here we go. Welcome in. It is Follow the Money on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Mitch Moss, Paulie Howard, live downtown Vegas. Circa Resort and Casino is your spot. Today is going to be a good day. Very solid guests. As always, been a strong week here on the program. Pat Forty out here in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days this week, coming up in 30 minutes. College football with him. And Adam Rittenberg will join us in an hour. Same deal there. The great Matt Vasgersian on tonight's Major League Baseball card in 90 minutes. And Scott Sanders has basically been listening or watching VSiN since day one. He just got back from a vacation with his wife in Bora Bora. The reason why he went there, he said that if his cross-sport parlays come in after the NBA Finals, that he was going to take her there. Man of his word, went, popped him for a lot of money. He's also made some really deep Survivor runs here at Circa in previous years. So that's going to be a fun conversation coming up with him at that time. How you feeling here on a Friday?
All right. Feel good. Getting close to the start of the NFL season, and it feels good to be a part of the Mariner bandwagon as well. It's hoping they make a move, and they win a game, although it was a high-wire act in the bottom of the ninth. Then we got Woo going today.
Well, okay, so what kind of slice of the bandwagon do you have? Are you just going to root him in for me? I got him.
I'd like to see it.
Okay. Thanks, buddy. I'll take it.
Not a lot of success since the Boone days, if you want to go back, Griffey, whatever. But I just think
never been in the World Series?
Yeah, I think it'd be great if they made the playoffs. And also you get waste this great pitching that you've had the last couple of years. So it's nice that they're the first team to make a move. And if you buy the reports, they think they're number one to try to get Suarez, which if you can get Naylor and Suarez to help out that offense, that's big.
Now, what do you think of that, by the way? So they would do it in two different deals because a lot of the talk leading into like the deadline before yesterday was, here's the attack. They're going to try to get Naylor and Suarez in the same package, and then it comes down to basically like how they have an unbelievable farm system. Mm-hmm. So how many of those guys do they want to give up for both those players? They did not approach it that way, and as soon as the deal was made yesterday and they acquired Naylor, the reaction, well, for me and I think many others was, oh, really? Naylor, that's great and all, but why not Suarez? But as soon as it happened, it's like, yeah, even though they got him, they're like the front runners to still go out there and try to at least engage with the Diamondbacks to try to reunite with Gino Suarez.
Yeah. So multiple people are reporting that, so that's great. And I'm not a prospect guy, farm system, who's got this, who's got that, but that would be, if you get the deal done, that's huge. And again, the Yankees are reported to be right there in the discussion, but if Seattle can get both guys, that's big. And I know the same thing you said yesterday. If you want to be a player here and get this done, don't screw around and mess around with the Angels. So first things first, you get that big win last night. It was also a nice win if you had first five with the 3 spot in the top of the 5th, and now you got Woo going today. So take 3 out of 4 here on the road.
So here's the deal again, and the Yankees acquired Ryan McMahon today. That doesn't really move the needle much for me, although in that ballpark, I guess it could be somewhat decent, and they are desperately in need of help on the hot corner. Other teams are as well. Buster Olney wrote about this today at ESPN.com. Everybody knows at this point it could come down to a bidding war for Suarez, but he points out and basically asked the question, could the Mets go after Suarez? He thinks it would make sense for them. They need help at third base. The Astros are in the market for a third baseman as well. What he was writing basically suggested it would be the next tier below a guy like Suarez or maybe even like McMahon. But we've seen this with Houston before. They don't screw around, and the Mariners are in their own division. I could actually see a scenario here where the Astros tell themselves, well, we don't have to break the bank here or give up the farm to get a guy like Suarez, but what if we go out there and get him, meaning the Mariners don't get him?
Yeah.
So that could kind of be a big deal as well. And then what are the Cubs going to do? Are they going to remain, will they be stagnant? Will they be active? And the Twins are evidently going to be, we're talking about Duran, Jax, Bader, Castro, Paddock, maybe some others as well. I don't know if Joe Ryan's going to get moved.
Well, the guy who covers the Twins, Suhan, for the local paper, beat writer, made a good point about, look what the Tigers did last year. They moved people at the deadline. They thought they were out of it. They lost games after the deadline, and then the huge ticket that cashed as they rallied to make the playoffs and played unbelievable ball down the stretch. He says Minnesota has the pieces to do that, and he wouldn't sell. He's making the case about, hey, you can do this. Even look what the Tigers' record was after the deadline, and then what happened there. That still a couple games under 500, you could pull that off. So I think he'll be wrong. I think they will trade people, but it's an interesting point that he brought up about what he thinks Minnesota should do. And I think that was an interesting game last night in St. Louis. That I now have the Cardinals 12-1 in Sonny Gray home starts. Darvish was horrible.
Again.
Horrible start by Darvish. Are you going to move Cease? Are you going to add pieces? The Padres score all those runs, and they still lose the game. And they are very popular tonight, by the way, but more on that coming up. But I think the Padres make moves. What does St. Louis do? We know Arizona's. I would love to get Kelly if I'm a team. They need some arms. I think that's another one. So Arizona already makes one move, and there'll probably be 3 other moves behind it.
Yeah, you would like Kelly, as would I. I would like Mitch Keller from the Pirates. I think that guy's having a really nice season. Get some run support there. Might not be that bad. I think we can agree on this. I really don't want Zach Gallen. And
I don't want.
It pains me to say that because we loved the guy for like 3 years, but at this point, I think you can't really give up much for him, if anything at all. But I think this week, Paulie, is such a big deciding factor here for the Padres' future, like this year and beyond. Because how active are they going to be? You're talking about moving Cease. We've had that conversation this week on the show. What are they going to get if they move Cease? Because you can't go to war with Yu Darvish right now.
Yeah.
Maybe it's going to take him. I'll get it, right? People are going to say, Mitch, he just got back from the injury. He's only made like 3 starts on the year. Yeah, it's been a struggle, but give him a little bit of time. What if he's shot? What if he's completely shot at this point? Because the guy's, 40 years old? And you tie that in with Cease, who I don't trust for a second. I don't know if you can take the Padres seriously with 2 of those guys in the rotation.
Yeah, fair.
They have to bank on both those guys basically turning it around and Michael King coming back to be healthy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'll tell you, and I'm not going to say it's panic time, but it's definitely cause for concern in Detroit if you make a move. This is ridiculous. You've lost 11-12, and they got their asses kicked again, and they can't hit.
Cruising along yesterday, and then, wait a second, Blue Jays very flammable with the offense. They just erupted there in those middle innings and took care of business yet again.
That's right. This is ugly, what's going on. They've been outscored 77-29 during this stretch.
Right, and what do they have, 7 or 8 runs scored since the All-Star break?
Yeah. No one's hitting. And the big question mark about who do you trust behind Skubal, oh boy. I mean, this is, they got to do something. Because, I mean, how things have changed here in the span of 2 weeks, where it's okay, 1 seed, lock it up, no problem. They're going, now it's like you got to add some pieces. Maybe you have to trade those prospects now.
Well,
because this is nuts. They are, forget about losing the games. They're not competing at all.
No.
They just got destroyed against. Remember, the Pirates got swept at home by the White Sox. And then Detroit comes in, and Pittsburgh takes them out behind the woodshed. 3 in a row. And they couldn't hit against Pittsburgh.
Well, here's, I think, like, how would you answer this question, Paulie? What if right now on the screen, odds at DraftKings, they're 1,100 to win their division. So you have to put down $1,100 to win 100. That's how big they are of a favorite.
Yeah, they're 8 up now, but it's been cut in half.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like,
it was 15 games. It's down to 8.
Where would they be at in terms of looking at the deadline and their chances this year if the Guardians didn't fall on their faces?
Yeah.
Right, and had that 10-game losing streak.
Yeah,
or if the lead was like 2.5 games right now in the division. Would they have made a move already? Would they be like, oh boy, it's squeaky bum time here. We got to do something because the Guardians are right on our tail? Or same thing with the Royals. They had a couple of injuries, obviously, and if they could have hit this year. I'm playing the what-if game, but I also think, like, you can't... I'm saying that because they can't feel comfortable just because they have a huge lead in their division and not make a move. You got to do something here.
Yep. The other one, like that guy has that great exacta that we showed on Pizza Bets with Milwaukee, Toronto. Would you do anything? What would you... I mean, everything's working right now. Toronto's won 17 of 21, and for the first time in history, Milwaukee, they're playing right now. They're trying to win a stretch of 37 of 50.
Yeah. No, I'd wait till the playoffs.
I mean, everything they're doing is working. And they're playing in sensational baseball. So now it's like, well, feel good about the chemistry, feel good about the clubhouse, feel great about how we're playing. Everything's working. Maybe don't do anything, don't touch anything. I could see that, too.
Yeah, by the way, you brought up a key word there, that bettors don't take into consideration. Doesn't mean anything to them. I think it should. The Brewers are talking about it now, how their friendships across the team are so big. They love each other. They love playing with each other. And they love hanging out when they're not in the dugout and the games are not going on. That, to me, can be a big thing. Doesn't mean they're going to win the World Series. No, but doesn't mean that they can win 95 games, this division, and be an absolute player in the National League, of course. And by watching the Blue Jays, you can tell the same exact thing. This young core, they've been together for a long time, and they're loving life right now. So that can be a massive thing when you're playing every single day for 6+ months, and you're not the Rockies, and you hate waking up and getting out of bed every single morning. You told me something before the show started. I had no idea.
They just showed it.
The reason why the Brewers are starting this game right now on a Friday, it's the 25th anniversary of Miller Park, or whatever they call it now.
Can you believe it?
Oh my! What?
We should be doing the show live. $2.50 beers and $2.50 brats.
Why? Are you serious?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh.
And for some reason, they're honoring Ryan Braun, who's there,
Well,
which the guy shouldn't be allowed in the stadium.
I can't stand
for what
that
he
guy.
pulled. I think he succeeded. I was going to say try. He ruined that guy's life. That
Correct.
tester. I can't believe they got that. That's unfortunate. Get our NFL betting guide that's out now, and the college football guide drops August 5th. You want both. Sign up for the football special. Everything we have to offer across all sports through the Super Bowl, just $175. Every best bet, every host, every guest. Full access to the analytics, the tools, and the pro systems. It expires Thursday. VSiN.com/subscribe. Lock it in, $175 through the Super Bowl. What a deal.
All right, we'll tie in what Charch said yesterday about Mike Evans and what Baker Mayfield said this week about Emeka Egbuka next.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Big Ten Media Days were this week out here in Las Vegas, and Pat Forty was in town covering. He is one of, if not the best, college football writers in the entire country. He was here with Sports Illustrated, and he is kind enough to join us now on the Progressive Guest Line. Pat, good afternoon. Thanks for the time today. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing well, guys. Enjoyed my time in your city. I'm sorry we didn't get to see each other face to face.
No worries. Things get out of hand once in a while, and obviously other obligations come into play. When you look at the top of the odds board to win this league, there is like one tier in it with 3 teams, Ohio State, Penn State, and Oregon, before you get a drop-off with Michigan at around 8-1 to win this thing. I want to begin with the Ducks because everybody's talking about Penn State and Ohio State, rightfully so. In your opinion, how big is the drop-off from Dillon Gabriel, who was like a really fantastic college quarterback for several years at multiple programs? How big is the drop-off here for the Ducks from Gabriel to Dante Moore?
That is the huge question, because you're right. Dillon Gabriel probably a little bit underappreciated through his college career because it was long and very illustrious and very productive. And he did lead him to the Big Ten championship last year. Dante Moore, excellent athlete, probably a better pro prospect kind of quarterback in terms of arm strength and everything else than Gabriel, and height, but got to prove it. Got to show it. Everybody loved him in high school. We just haven't seen enough to know. I think Will Stein's offensive coordinator is really good and will have a user-friendly system for him. And Oregon has a lot of talent to put around him. Now, they did lose Evan Stewart, their receiver, to a summer injury, and he's likely not going to play this year. That's a big blow. But, there's certainly high hopes for Dante Moore, but like a lot of other quarterbacks going into this season, got to actually show he can do it.
Yep, totally agree with that. Mm-hmm. So what is your pecking order at the very top, by the way? Do you think this is the year for Penn State? Because overall, and I think most people think this, their roster probably has the edge compared to Ohio State.
The most dangerous thing I could possibly say is, and I'm going to say it, I think Penn State can win the national championship.
Wow.
Which, given their history of not winning the big ones, and James Franklin's kind of tortured history in that respect, it's out on a limb a little bit. But if you look at the roster, you look at the experience, you look at the staff, this is the year to do it. Especially, I think, vis-a-vis the competition out there. They did the same thing Michigan and Ohio State did, which was to retain a lot of very good, fourth year, fifth year, kind of third year, fourth year kind of guys, keep them from going to the NFL where they would have been maybe second round, third round picks. get them back in school, and build around that. And that's how those two teams won national championships in 23 and 24. And I think they followed that formula. They also picked up Jim Knowles, defensive coordinator from Ohio State. And we'll see if Drew Aller can take that next step. He's really talented. He's been productive. He just has a habit of making big mistakes in big spots. And if he can get over that, and he might, then I think they're the team to beat.
Very good. What was the feeling about USC and what they're going to look like, not only this year, but I thought about the future? Because I thought when Riley took the job, they were going to dominate the Pac-12. Pac-12 goes away. Now they were a disaster last year, and now they're 25-1 to win the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, the Riley tenure has been so far a waste of money.
Yes.
He has not delivered. But that we'll see. They're recruiting extremely well for next year at the high school level. Like, they're killing it in the state of California, which they probably should have been doing the previous couple of years. So they're looking good from that standpoint. They do think that this roster is in good shape, that they're going to be better at the line of scrimmage on both sides. They like their coaching staff from that standpoint too. And, optimism always springs eternal at this point, but on paper, I think they should be a top 25 team. Certainly not a team, that struggles to win any games in the league. Last year they were quite bad on the road, and just a big disappointment. They should be better than that.
Okay. And what do you expect out of Indiana?
I think they're going to be good. I think if you look, they're, they lost some players, but they also retained some really good players. They might have the best defensive end in the country, or one of, in Mikhail Kamara. They've got an elite defensive back. They've got, I think, an upgrade at quarterback in Fernando Mendoza, who transferred from California. Curtis Rourke was good in that system, but he was totally immobile behind an average offensive line. And Mendoza can at least move. And if you don't have a sitting duck at quarterback, that just makes you so much more dangerous, I think, offensively, and they'll have that. So I think Indiana could be a playoff team again.
Wow.
Oh, strong.
Oh.
It's Follow the Money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest, Pat Forty. You can follow him on X at @ByPat40, covers college sports for Sports Illustrated. Are you going to say the same thing about Michigan? Now, they finished strong last year. The quarterback play made them unwatchable for the most part. Are they going to be good enough at that position? Do you think they actually squeak into the playoffs?
I don't know. I would not say playoffs for Michigan. I still think that's at best, probably 15 to 25 team. They had a lot of really good defensive players still on that team last year, and they'll still have good defensive players, but not the level that they showed. I mean, they had a lot of guys drafted first, second round off that defense, and so I don't think they'll be as good there. Offensively, they can't be worse. Quarterback play has got to be better. It was absolutely atrocious. They were pretty cagey. Sharon Moore was pretty cagey about that with Bryce Underwood. He said, we have no starter. It's an open competition. So we'll see. Underwood's fantastically talented. He was, an early enrollee who went through spring, but, how raw is he? How ready is he to step up and lead an offense? That's all TBD.
Okay. You've done not only a great job the past few weeks, but especially this week, highlighting this rivalry now, as it turns out, with the Big Ten and the SEC, where 3 times Franklin referred to the SEC as that other conference, and then the Big Ten saying we definitely deserve 4 auto bids, comparing it to the NFL with the grind and the depth and also the travel. What do you think now? Are we going to stay at 12 teams now, and the SEC won't go to 9 league games? What do you think happens?
It is interesting. And James Franklin, I was, listening to him, I was like, he's purposefully not saying SEC. And, I wrote about it. Not only saw Greg Sankey on Twitter put out something that said, welcome to that other conference. And had like the SEC logo, but it said TOC instead of SEC. Mm-hmm. So I think Sankey's leaning into this a little bit. Like, fine, you guys want to chirp? We'll chirp with you, and then we'll see who wins on the field. It's fascinating. The Big Ten came out rhetorically swinging and in unison, basically, with the coaches. First of all praising Tony Petitti like this sounded like Pyongyang, North Korea to a degree, like dear leader here. But then beyond that, really like going to bat for the 4 automatic bids, and that's what we need, and that's the way this should be run. And it was just kind of an endless chorus of that. And I do think, to your point, Paulie, that I think both sides are pretty dug in at this point. I would not be surprised at all if it leads to an impasse and we play a 12-game playoff in 2026 as well.
Are you buying the Illini hype?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, I'm a big Brett Bielema fan. I think he's an excellent coach. He's not just entertaining to listen to, but he really is a good coach. And, I think he just has progressively gotten more comfortable in his skin there at Illinois and in that position. And he's built a really solid team. It's got a third-year starting quarterback, just like Penn State does, just like Clemson does. And they've got good players around him. I think they're, if you want to go through a pecking order, and part of this is dependent upon schedule, but I would say Penn State, Ohio State, and then I actually think Oregon, Indiana probably, and then Illinois. So top 5. I don't know that, do you make a playoff at 5? Probably not, but I think they should be right in the mix. And the Indiana schedule, too, is a big factor in their favor. They're going to put up a good record again, and then we'll have the same argument we had last year, whether they're really any good. Yeah,
I think that's probably spot on. Pat, love talking to you. Thanks for popping on and catching up today. We appreciate that. Enjoy the summer. We'll talk down the road, okay?
Yeah. Sounds good, guys. Thank you.
Be good. There you go. Pat 40 on X at @Pat40 for Sports Illustrated. Let me give you this. Wisconsin plays. Have you looked at their schedule? Do you have it memorized?
No.
At Bama, at Michigan, at Oregon, at Indiana. They host Iowa, the Buckeyes, Washington, and Illinois.
Oh, boy.
So if they go...
I thought he was going to crush it there.
So did I.
But
they've had at least 2 years in a row now of, I'm not going to call it an impossible schedule, but a very difficult schedule. If he's 3-9 this year, 4-8,
yeah.
Do you say we still got to stick with him and give him more time?
Well, they changed coordinators already, right?
Yeah.
They did, yeah. That offensive system didn't work out either. I believe Bielema met his wife at the blackjack table in Las Vegas.
I think you're right.
That story.
Yeah.
But
she blocked me on Twitter many years ago.
Oh, wow. Breaking news. I have their back, though. I'm not going to go crazy with 4 auto bids. Everyone's got to play 9 league games.
Totally agree.
They're totally right on that.
Win, lose up next. We'll discuss odds to lead the league in INTs coming up on VSiN.
That's what I always say. You always follow the money.
Yeah. This is Follow the Money with Mitch Moss and Paulie Howard on VSiN.
Good to have you on board. Fun hour coming up as we're live in Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino. In 15 minutes, we'll get into tonight's Major League Baseball card. Bottom of the hour, Matt Vasgersian joins us from MLB Network. We'll talk college football here to begin the hour. We head out to the Progressive guest line. Adam Rittenberg, nice enough to join us here on a Friday afternoon. He was just in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days. Adam, good afternoon. Thanks for the time today. How are you?
I'm doing great, guys. Great to be back from the desert, and I hope you're both doing well.
Back at you, and thanks for the time. Let's begin here with USC, and I'll tie in a tweet that you had that Lincoln Riley in the program wants to keep playing Notre Dame, but schools are, quote, in radically different situations, end of quote. Not a high win total this year, not a lot of hype with the Trojans. When you were out here in Las Vegas for Big Ten Media Days, did you find much optimism this year for USC?
I think within the program, there's quite a lot. Their big moves this offseason were not so much in the transfer portal, but very much in their front office, which all these major teams have now with a new general manager and Chad Bowden coming over from Notre Dame. Others that are in that role of kind of program overseer personnel. And so there's some things that are happening for the future that I think are really exciting. I think the question is, can USC take that next step on the field this fall after a very bizarre 7-6 season? They beat 2 SEC teams there in Las Vegas at Allegiant Stadium, but in between it was kind of a mess. They lost 4 one-score games on the road. Not just to a really good team, or at least somewhat a good team like Michigan, but you're losing to Maryland. That was Maryland's only win in the Big Ten. They were very competitive at home against Penn State, and even for a little bit against Notre Dame. but ultimately fell short. And so they've got to play better away from home. They've got to turn some of those close losses into wins. And I asked Lincoln Riley about, the old Bobby Bowden adage, you have to lose close before you can win. And, he certainly subscribes to that, but understands that they have to continue to make strides defensively in terms of how they perform at the line of scrimmage. And then on offense, they have had pretty good numbers there, but can they continue to attack defenses and have a reasonable running game? Those are questions that I think a lot of people outside of the USC program have. But I would say internally, there certainly is optimism that they're not far away from having a much better wins total.
I talked to some Iowa fans, and they think they can have a pretty good season, actually be fun, worth a watch, and actually play decent offensive football. But 8-4 last year, and they get Indiana, Oregon, and Penn State at home. What do you think of the Hawkeyes?
Yeah, a team to absolutely watch for the playoff. I mean, I think they're so easily dismissed because of the offensive struggles, but you also have to look at how many games they've been winning, and they continue to win at a pretty good clip. And if they can, again, take that jump on offense, they were better last year. And Kirk Ferentz, their head coach, believes that they could be a lot better, especially at the quarterback position, bringing in a guy like Mark Gronowski from South Dakota State, who led them to an FCS national title, has more than 10,000 career passing yards. He's a grown man. I mean, he's there, to get better and ultimately help his chances to play in the NFL. And so they don't have to baby him. He's integrated well into the locker room. And I know Kirk is excited about his potential. You're working with second-year coordinator and Tim Lester. You can't take anything for granted, guys, but one thing that's fairly certain is that Iowa will be among the nation's best defenses and among the nation's best in the kicking game every single year. So you're not asking for the offense to be top 10 or top 15, but if they can be an adequate middle-of-the-pack offense, they can be in the playoff mix. And you touched on it, those big games at home, Iowa historically has beaten teams that have more talent than the Hawkeyes at Kinnick Stadium. So that would certainly apply to a game like Oregon and some of those others. So they're absolutely a team to watch this season.
No doubt. I'm intrigued by Iowa. I'm also intrigued by Washington. Last year, to nobody's surprise, they came back to earth a little bit after the unbelievable year that Penix and the entire team put together, making the national title game. And this year now, Damon Williams is going to be the man at quarterback here for Washington. Year 2 of Jedd Fisch. Williams only 19 years old, but I think he's going to electrify a lot of people who have never watched him before. What do you think about the Huskies this season?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and I'm very intrigued to see what Damon can do, being the clear-cut starter right away. I thought Jedd Fisch, their head coach, did a smart thing late in the year and put Damon Williams in there against Oregon and against Louisville in bowl games. And even though they didn't win those games, he was quite productive, showed great accuracy, showed playmaking ability. And overall, Jedd surprised me. I didn't realize that Damon had played almost a quarter of the snaps by the end of the season because he got into some other contests. So I think there's great confidence in him. You have one of the league's better receivers in Denzel Boston, one of the league's best running backs in Jonah Coleman, and a defense that I think could get better under new coordinator Ryan Walters, who obviously has familiarity as a Big Ten head coach at Purdue, but also as a Big Ten defensive coordinator at Illinois. So and that's another team. You guys remember when Washington gets it going at home, that's one of the best home field advantages in all of college football. And having Oregon at home, Ohio State at home, Illinois at home, those are big games that I think maybe you can't win all of them, but maybe win one or two of them. Suddenly Washington's a team we're talking about.
Very good. Follow the money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We briefly mentioned Wisconsin earlier, another year here with Luke Fickell, who obviously came to the program with super high expectations. I will submit that the schedule last year was daunting. And Adam, the schedule this year, I mean, they play Bama, Michigan, Oregon, and Indiana all on the road. They host Iowa, the Buckeyes, Washington, and Illinois. Not a lot of high expectations this year for the Badgers. I would think that automatically almost you kind of have to give this guy at least one more year beyond this, right? Because the schedule is so brutal this season.
Well, I think so. This is easily a team that could be better with a similar or maybe even worse record, although that would maybe be trouble for Luke. Again, Chris McIntosh is the athletic director who hired him. Chris is very much from the Barry Alvarez, the old Wisconsin guard. He went outside the family and did something bold to bring in Luke Fickell. So I think they're going to give him every possible chance to succeed as a coach who made the 14 playoff at Cincinnati, who had great success there, obviously comes from the Ohio State tree. And, in talking to Luke, I think there's a recognition that if they can get back to some of the things that made Wisconsin great year to year, but also just have a little bit more togetherness in the locker room than they've had in his first couple of years that he takes ownership for. I think that this could be a team that at least holds its own in some of these games. But there's so many games. You look at that schedule, guys, where they're going to be an underdog, and in some cases a significant underdog. And not to reiterate too much of the same theme, but again, Wisconsin, when it's great, they don't lose at Camp Randall Stadium, so they need to make that place a tougher place to play. Maybe not for Ohio State, which will be a really difficult game, but Iowa, that's a winnable game. Illinois with Brett Bielema coming back and a good team. They'd love to spoil a season that Illinois has, maybe going to the college football playoff and send Brett Bielema home unhappy. So I think that's going to be really, really important. They almost beat Oregon last year on that field, and Oregon obviously won the conference. So they can still be a tough team at home, especially if they get their house in order a little bit on the offensive side with new coordinator Jeff Grimes coming in.
So you were there, and one tweet got my attention, but if you can describe what it was like all week, that they think they run college football, and I think they're right, that they won the last 2 national titles, but I thought the Big Ten and SEC were BFFs, and there's great relationship. And then it's like, well, we could deserve 4 auto bids, and we want the SEC to play 9 league games, and maybe this relationship isn't that great. And when you were talking to a couple with Petiti, he had to take a phone call. Sankey called him, and he took the phone call. So that's a wild tweet that you had and how that played out. But what is the relationship like now? And it looks like we're probably not going to expand the playoff in the next year.
Well, that's certainly a possibility. Here's the thing that people need to realize. Even though there's a disagreement about playoff model, the relationship between Tony Petiti and Greg Sankey is really strong. It's stronger than I can ever remember with 2 commissioners from the 2 behemoth leagues in the sport. Even though Tony certainly would love the SEC and Greg Sankey to support his playoff model with all the automatic qualifiers and the play-in weekend, that he was very consistent to put out that message this week in Vegas. He still, has to work with Greg Sankey and talk about some of the big issues, and they very much bounce ideas off of one another. And this is the relationship that Tony wanted to create when he took this job, to work with the SEC instead of against the SEC. It's why the leagues have had 2 joint meetings. They'll likely meet again. Whether they get to an answer by the end of the calendar year and go forward united on a future playoff model remains to be seen. But like you said, if they don't, it'll remain a 12-team college football playoff, which we just introduced, by the way. Mm-hmm. And now that the seeding is straight seeding, I think that will be a positive change. It's amazing to me, given how hard it is to change anything in college football, that they changed the playoff format, and now they're already trying to change it again. That's pretty unusual, and it may lead to the status quo, which, again, I don't think is a bad thing for the sport.
Yeah, well said. Yeah. In about a minute left here, which team do you think wins the conference this year?
If it's not Penn State, you got to really wonder if it'll ever happen. Penn State, if you look at those 4 teams that made the semifinals of the CFP, 3 of them lost a lot. Penn State, they lose Abdul Carter and a few others, but they bring back the core, including quarterback Drew Aller, of a really good team. And everything seems to be lined up. They get Oregon after a very easy stretch at home at night at Beaver Stadium. If they can win that game, it's going to set up, that trip to Columbus later on. But you really have to ask, if it's not this year for Penn State, will it ever happen for James Franklin? And he's very aware that he's got to start winning some of these big games.
Yep. Adam Rittenberg does a great job covering college football for ESPN and ESPN.com. Follow him on X. He is at ESPN Rittenberg. Great talking to you, Adam. Thanks so much for the time today. We appreciate that.
You bet, guys. Thanks for having me. Have a great weekend.
Yep, you too. Job. And he joined us here in the Progressive Guest Line.
Okay, so you said it during the break. What if Penn State does it? Then that's 3 years in a row.
3 in a row.
Yeah.
Well, then they can go scoreboard all day long.
Oh, my God. Then it also changes things.
Sure.
Like we run the sport. Come on, you're SEC. You're 1-4, or what is it? 1-5 the last 2 years in the playoffs.
Sure. Up next, we will discuss today's Major League Baseball card. He needs to be considered every time he pitches at home, much like the situation calls for tonight.
This is Follow the Money on VSiN.
Welcome back. We'll continue talking Major League Baseball here. Friend of the show, does a dynamite job on MLB Network. Matt Vasgersian joins us now on the Progressive Guest line. Matt, thanks for the time as always. How are you today?
Good, guys. Rainy here in the Northeast. We'll see if that plays a role in this Phillies-Yankees game's pretty fun tonight. There are a lot of good matchups tonight. Red Sox, Dodgers. I mean, this is a good night on the card.
It really is. How do you think that will impact that game? We kicked that around in the previous segment. Warren takes on Walker here. Pinstripers taking on the Phillies. I mean, for what it's worth, Aaron Judge again, 4 for 13 in his career against Walker. Small sample size, but all 4 hits have left the yard. It's a total of 10, which can seem a little bit daunting, but man, it feels like we're going to get fireworks in this game.
It does. The mitigating factor there is whenever there's thunder showers that prevent the timely start, this is pure superstition. There's no empirical background here at all here. I always feel like what should happen doesn't if the game is delayed by rain. It just messes up it. You know, changing dealers at a blackjack table, some of that inexplicable stuff that happens that messes you up. But I mean, having said that, like Will Warren has had all kinds of trouble against lefties. And we know that the lefty component in that Philly lineup matches. 859 OPS against lefties, 7 of the 11 homers he's given up into lefties. The pitches that have been hit the hardest, his sweeper and his changeup. So if you this is all free. You go to Baseball Savant, you do a search. Which left-handed Phillies hit the sweeper and the changeup for power the most? It's Kyle Schwarber. The answer's always going to come up Kyle Schwarber. So I think he's a guy, among other left-handed hitting Phillies, that could have a good night tonight.
Yep, and I know this will piss you off. Schwarber is plus 180 and Judge is plus 140 to hit a home run.
God, that is it's the hardest thing to do in sports. You're going to give me 180 for a homer? Forget it. I'd advocate somebody playing the 1.5 total bases before that. It's crap.
Yeah. So we couldn't get you on soon enough. You'd like Churio to hit a home run, and he went deep.
Oh.
How about some other guys that could rake tonight?
There are a handful of guys right now that are just piping red hot, and Churio's one of them. The homer that he had in his first at-bat in that game, but started early, which kind of catches a lot of people off guard, makes him 18 straight that he's hit in. Sal Perez is just on this ridiculous power binge right now. He's homered in 9 of his last 13. The Royals are at home against Gavin Williams, who's probably a little underreported as being a pretty good starter. But, I mean, there's worse guys to take a flyer on. Ramon Laureano's red hot, and he's like a secret weapon against lefties, wears out lefties. He's homered in 3 of his last 4. Royce Lewis is hot, and Minnesota's at home against the Nationals. Royce Lewis is finally hot, by the way. That could be a big difference for them in trying to claw back into the race if the Tigers continue to stumble. He's 7 for his last 14. He's homered in 3 in a row. He's facing a left-hander tonight, and Mackenzie Gore. Those are the guys, like individual players, that I think are interesting. And somebody is going to homer for the Reds tonight, because they're at home against Zach Littell of the Rays, who's given up 24 homers, and most of that damage has come on the road. Oddly, you'd think, in that ballpark they're playing in Tampa, you'd get knocked around a little bit more. He's made 10 starts at home, 10 on the road, double the amount of homers on the road. So somebody in that Reds lineup, you just got to pick the right guy. Is it Ellie? He hasn't homered in 25 straight. That's creeping up on a career high for him.
Wow.
Pick a lefty, and I would love Will Benson in that game, but he's batting 8th. He might only get 3 plate appearances, and if he walks in one of them, your nickel's gone.
Yeah. Any interest here in taking on a White Sox team tonight? Maybe going to war with them. I know it's the Cubs. I know it's Imanaga, but the White Sox are hitting. And what is going on with Hauser? He has like dynamite numbers, Matt.
Yeah, and that's why it's kind of a dicey thing to back him tonight. He could get traded in the 3rd inning. He could get traded right now.
Yeah.
He's on the block. So maybe a way to approach that is by looking at his unders. Outs, hits allowed, and you hope they hope they get a phone call in the 4th inning and he's on his way to Seattle or whatever. I mean, I'm kidding about that. I don't know that you can do that, but boy, the White Sox, if some of your listeners who are out there looking for value that like betting dogs, they have really taken pretty good care of you the last week and a half.
Is there value here? Texas, 22-1 to win the American League, 9-3 last 12, averaging almost 6 runs per game. Evaldi's won 3 in a row, ERA of 0.48. Could make a move, and if I make the playoffs, I got DeGrom and Evaldi.
Yeah, I don't know that they're going to score the kind of runs. They're not going to continue scoring 6 runs a game. I love them this weekend, though. I mean, goodness, not only are they hot, they're playing a Braves team that is really close to packing it in for the winter. I mean, if they don't make moves and trade Iglesias and trade Ozuna, and, you could even make a case for trading Murphy because they love Drake Baldwin. They should be a completely different looking team after the deadline. So I love Evaldi tonight. I love the Rangers in the series. And sure, as far as value, 22-1, who else in the American League do you really trust? I mean, Toronto's hot right now. Do you trust the Yankees right now?
No.
Detroit's in a free fall. I mean, they've lost 4 in a row and 10 out of 11. They can't beat the Toronto Blue Jays. So, why not the Rangers? That's interesting.
Yeah. Didn't we see the white flag getting waved the other night by Atlanta? You have Strider going against Verlander, and Strider gets rocked. But in the meantime, I mean, Verlander's like at 70 pitches through 3 innings. He's walking the ballpark. They can't get a single hit off that guy who has struggled the entire season, and they got absolutely blasted with that matchup.
Yeah, I think there've been a few times when they've waved the white flag. I mean, they haven't been this far under 500 since 2017, which was the last year they missed the postseason. They have just endured way too many injuries from the pitching end in their starters ranks to even consider being buyers at this point. I know it's not in their DNA to wave the white flag, but I think they've done it already. They're getting Austin Riley back tonight. Maybe that gives them a little false hustle sense of hope, but I'm with you. I'm on the fade train for Atlanta.
Yeah. It's Follow the Money here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Our guest, Matt Vasgersian, he's on the Progressive Guest Line, of course, does a great job at MLB Network. We saw the action get underway yesterday before the trade deadline with the Mariners going out and getting Josh Naylor. And then it comes out like, hey, they're probably still the front runners to get Suarez. Would you agree with that take? And then how many other big names do you think are going to, like, you probably brought up the Rangers. Is there a team that we should focus on right now to maybe grab a future on because you think they're going to make a big move?
Well, Ryan McMahon, him going to the Yankees kind of thins out the field of potential suitors for Suarez. And I know that the Reds would love to have him back. Isn't it interesting that 2 of the teams he's played for in the past are leaders in the clubhouse right now to retain his services again? I mean, he is a wildly popular guy in the room. We know that when he gets hot, he can carry a roster. But if you look at the standings, I don't know that there's somebody that can make a flashy, splashy set of ads and really help themselves that much. If Dylan Cease goes to Boston, I guess maybe on opening day, if you told me that was going to happen, I'd be more excited about it now because he's been really inconsistent this year. Can somebody catch the Tigers? I don't think so. Like Kansas City started to hit this month, but if they sell pitching, I don't think they stay in the race either. So I don't know. To answer your question, Mitch, I don't know that there's anybody that's going to change their trajectory that much with this deadline. It's going to be the good teams getting a little better and sharpening up edges where they're dull.
All right. Do you have any other angles tonight for us to maybe consider?
I think Toronto is just I got a hard time getting in front of that train. Like they're just absolutely rolling. They boat raced Detroit yesterday. I think that's a side that I'd be interested in tonight. And again, somebody's going to homer in Cincy against Zach Littell. You just got to pick the right guy. And again, you can get on Baseball Savant. It's a slider and a sinker that have been hit the hardest. So if you search which Reds, left-handed hitting Reds specifically, hit the slider and the sinker the best, maybe that's the answer. And Benson's one of them. Again, I just have a problem advocating a guy that hits 8th to hit a homer because he's going to have fewer chances.
Sure. Like if he was batting top half of the lineup, let's say he was at cleanup tonight, would you say absolutely you're betting him?
Yeah. If I can get closer to guaranteeing 4 plate appearances for somebody like that, like he still might get it. Like they might work up such a big number that everybody bats 5 times in that lineup. But in the 8th spot, it's tough. It's tough. The note that you had, Paulie, on the Astros giving up the first run is interesting. And, look, they're at home.
Yeah.
The A's are going to bat first tonight. Is anybody really that sold on Ryan Gusto, the starter tonight for the Astros? That's pretty interesting.
Yeah. 15 games in a row. That's nuts. I'm with you on that one.
I could be talked into that one too, for sure. That's pretty interesting.
Very good.
You know what I thought? What else was interesting? The series price on the Red Sox Dodgers series, because look, the eyeball test is it's just Dodgers, whoever they play. But look at the 3 pitching matchups. It's the Red Sox have their 3 best guys, and I looked at that series price, and actually the Red Sox are slight favorites there, which I thought was interesting. But we're buying that pitching matchup.
Thanks, buddy. Have a great weekend.
You got it. See you guys.
Thank you.